Everything we've talked about today has been domestic issues, and I'm just curious what you think about the fact that we're spending $300 million a day in Afghanistan, and if elected, you're going to have to deal with federal issues, foreign policy. And what would you do on day one to try and either stay the course or change plans in Afghanistan? And we'll start with Mia Love and then go to the left.
I can tell you there's something that will be able to fix that greatly. If we are, one, energy independent, then we can look at some of the way that we deal with our foreign policy. I would like to say that when Iran says we're not going to let another drop of oil cross the Straits of Hormuz, I'd like to say, so what? We don't need it. Energy will make us more independent, more competitive on the global market, and will make it so that we're not risking American lives for resources that we already have at home. So we've got to look at, we can't be the world's police. It's not going to be able to happen. We're not going to be able to do that. But at least when we send soldiers out to fight, we're making sure that we are fighting for protection of our country. We're fighting for American lives. We're keeping our country safe. And we've got to make sure that we've got an attainable objective and a way out. And by the way, when Congress goes into war, when they get involved, and that means if you're bombing somebody, that's an act of war. They should seek approval from Congress. The president should seek approval from Congress, not from the UN. And when we look at some of these things, obviously there's going to be a different issue. But we're going to trust some of the engineers, the military engineers on the ground, and we're going to make sure that when we get involved in something, it's for national security.
He's going this way. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So you asked specifically about Afghanistan. I do believe we need to withdraw from there, but we have to make sure it's the right time. And so we're going to be there until it's appropriate to leave. I think more generally, when you talk about military action, I think there's a lot we can do in terms of bringing troops home from other areas where we have them. I think we need to review our policies and make sure there's still our national security interest in a lot of places where the troops are, and I think that helps in bringing that back. For me, when we talk about things like Iran and say, preemptive wars and things like that, for me, I have a very high bar. We have to be very careful when we initiate wars and we go and attack people. We have to make sure our intelligence is right, and as a representative, that would be my job to actually test that intelligence and make sure. I don't have a hair trigger on that. I think anytime we send someone to war, people are going to die, and that's a very serious thing. So I'd be very cautious on that, and then make sure, too, that there's the proper authorization through declaration by Congress on that.
Yeah, I come from a military family. My father served in the 82nd Airborne Division. My parents had 5 boys and 1 sister. Of the 5 boys, 3 of them are career Army. The other 2 of us are career law enforcement. And so it's a very personal issue. I classify myself as fairly non-interventionist. I believe that the role of our military is to protect our nation and our sovereignty. Barring those 2 things, it is very difficult. I agree with Jay. It would be very difficult for me to ever vote to intervene militarily unless there's a direct threat to our country or our sovereignty. We have to make sure that we are not putting our men and women in harm's way for things that are, frankly, none of our business, in fact. We have to be very cautious of that. I would look to, as Jay was saying, possibly bring troops home from overseas and maybe from some bases that no longer serve us a military advantage. But when we are threatened, we need to go to war, have a constitutional declaration of war, and we need to go to win.
Well, to get to the question about Afghanistan, we were justified to go into Afghanistan, there's no doubt, because al-Qaeda was there, we had the Taliban there, and we had Osama bin Laden there. They attacked us, they killed Americans. We should let anybody know that if you attack Americans, you're going to pay the price. The problem we made was we made it a political war. The rules of engagement were such that we couldn't go in there just to win. If we're going to go into somewhere like Afghanistan, we better go in there. We got to hit them hard, hit them so hard they don't know hit them, and then we get out. We don't stay there for years and years and years. The problem is that we have been there for so long now that if we just pull out instantly, it's going to cause a vacuum. The Taliban's going to be right back in power. We need to talk to military commanders. I have friends I went to OCS with in the Marine Corps that have been in Afghanistan at the field grade level as colonels. And they tell me that the rules of engagement are strangling them so much that they cannot get the job done. We should get the job done and get out. But I will absolutely defend the budget of our military. We have to keep a strong military. We have to protect the national security interests of this country anywhere in the world, anytime.
There's a special unit in the Pentagon that every time there's a conflict anywhere, they go to them for advice to see what impact it would have on oil. Now, they don't do it for apples. They don't do it for wheat. Why do they do it for oil? It's obviously because we're not energy independent, and there's no reason we shouldn't be energy independent. So I'd like you to catch a vision of what I've been working for in my writings, and ever since I worked in oil shale country in Kaparowitz Plateau. Just try to imagine a United States where oil is just not an issue. Gasoline price is not an issue, because it's just like any other commodity. That changes everything. It certainly changes foreign affairs immensely. I'd never want to see somebody die for a barrel of oil. That's absurd. Now, once that's taken off the table, then you can start talking more easily about what is in American interest as far as going to war and what is not. And that's not one of them. Economic considerations are not one of them. We don't want their oil. We don't need it.